Thank you for once again giving us the opportunity to play host to this grand conclave. It is all of you who give us the drive and strength to overcome all obstacles and continue to strive for the growth and success of women in engineering and technology. To our guests who've journeyed here for the conference, I wish you a very fruitful stay in the rich city of Pune. Let us now officially kickstart the evening by inviting on stage Ms. Jonna Gerken, FY18 President of Society of Women Engineers, for her opening remarks with a huge round of applause, everybody.
Good evening, everyone. So on behalf of the Society, the Board of Directors, our staff, and our members, thank you for being here for our conference. I have a few opening remarks, and we're going to get right to our panel. At this point in SWE's history, I couldn't be prouder to be the Society President and a longtime and life member of the Society of Women Engineers. A lot has changed since the Society opened its doors in 1950. And I don't think any of the founding members could quite have envisioned that we would all be here in Pune, India today for our third and largest We Local conference in India, celebrating the community of women engineers and our diversity partners across the country. But although they might not have guessed the mission of this society would extend beyond the boundaries of the US, I am very certain they would be immensely proud of the amazing women here at the conference. This evening's discussion is about how executives and senior leaders can champion diversity in their organization, while also providing a glimpse of the future of engineering. As in the US, much more work needs to be done in India to achieve gender equity in engineering and technology. We appreciate everyone being here tonight, actively investing their time and passion in working towards a more diverse and inclusive workplace. Tonight, before we acknowledge our sponsors and kick off our discussion with the evening keynotes, Rebecca Liebert and Sudhakar Potukuchi, I would like to share with you some of SWE's achievements as an organization. And they're really great, if I may say so myself. Back in the year 2000, SWE celebrated 50 years in the industry and had around 3,000 women attend the annual conference that was in the United States. 17 years later, just this past October, we hosted our largest annual conference yet with over 14,000 women in Austin, Texas. Quite a big job. That was, yes, that does deserve some applause. In addition to our annual conference, we now host 7 We Local conferences around the world, along with multiple roundtable workshops and symposia. In 2006, SWE launched a new program called Aspire to highlight a career in engineering to young girls ages 8 to 18. Today, just 10 years later, SWE has more than 5,000 girls participating in our SWE Next program. And our members host collectively more than 500 events during the year with around 40,000 girls participating. And what started as a small group of women engineers in 1950 in New York has grown to a member network of close to 40,000 women that reside in 60 countries. The Society is now the world's largest advocate for all women in engineering and technology. We support current and future women engineers through grants and scholarships, as well as recognize their achievements and successes through a robust awards program. And lastly, we'd like to note that this year's attendance in Pune has exceeded our 2017 conference, making this the largest conference in India to date. Much of this could not be accomplished without the support of our sponsors. And I'd like to acknowledge our platinum, gold, and silver sponsors. Our platinum sponsors are Eaton and Honeywell. Gold sponsor, Boeing. Our silver sponsors, Air Products, Bechtel, Cadence, Caterpillar, Cummins Incorporated, Emerson, General Motors, Halliburton, IBM, Intel Corporation, John Deere, Keysight Technologies, Medtronic, Shell, and United Technologies Corporation. And thank you also to the NYU Tandon School of Engineering for joining our networking exhibition.
Thank you so much, Jonna. Ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for an exclusive fireside chat to be moderated by Ms. Jonna. I would now like to invite our guest speakers for this panel up on stage. Mr. Sudhakar Potukuchi, Vice President, Technology and Head, Eaton India Innovation Center. And Ms. Rebecca Liebert, President, UOP, Honeywell. Ladies and gentlemen, can we please put our hands together for our speakers, please? Over to you, Jonna.
Thank you both for joining us. Here for your mic.
Thank you.
Okay. Am I okay? I think we're good. Yep. Very good. Okay, so thank you both for joining us tonight. We have some great questions prepared, but please, if you have a question, raise your hand, and we will try to intersperse them throughout the evening. There will be a mic roaming around, so please get their attention. Okay, are we all set? Okay, lots of great questions here. First, we're going to start with Rebecca, if that's okay. Yep. What are the benchmarks of success within your organization when it comes to diversity and inclusion initiatives? And how do you develop them?
Okay, well, I think, we're all engineers and we're used to measuring everything. So we started by measuring where we were and, set that as the baseline. And we look at the population of the talent that we could put in roles. And so for every role we're going to fill, we look, if it's an internal role, what's the population of males and females that could be eligible for that role? And if it's an external role, what's the population based on the demographics that would be available for that role? So if it's an entry level, what is the population percentage that would be coming out of colleges and universities? If it's experienced role, what would be the typical demographics? So we have a metric for every role on how many available diverse candidates should be considered. And then when we fill that role, we look and see how many did we interview, how many diverse candidates did we interview. Well, actually, let me back that up. We look at how many actually made it onto the slate to be interviewed, then how many got to the interview panel, and then did we down select to one diverse candidate or not. So it's pretty rigorous, and we go through every single opportunity and look at that level of detail. And at the executive level, we review quarterly how we are doing on those targets, and not to every single, obviously, open position, but on a summary of how we did. And we hold ourselves accountable. And it really starts with the intake process. So all of our recruiting firms have really a mandate to make sure that they're bringing us diverse slates. And as a manager, we really ask all of our managers to push to their recruiting partner and make sure they have diverse slates coming in. It takes everybody. It takes a lot of work. And sometimes you have to push back and say, this slate isn't good enough. Go find some more slates and bring them in. But that's really how we're going to get there.
So SP, following on that, when you're looking at the future of engineering and the engineers that might be in the next 20, 30 years, what do you view as the knowledge, skills, and competencies that would be needed to develop them in the workplace? And do you see that changing, the core competencies changing at all?
I think if you look at any technology organization, the products that get developed are pretty complex. So at a very fundamental level, I don't think the basics of physics and chemistry are going to change in the next 30 years. So
I hope not.
I don't think on that front there is a big change that's going to happen. Having said that, if you look at the way the technology is progressing, there are a lot of things that are getting automated, and if you're doing certain things which are very repetitive, which can be done by a machine, probably that should not be done by an engineer. So in the future, some of those things are going to definitely take over, and with that, there will be some changes. And as that transformation happens, probably people are going to be a lot more looking for skills, something like creativity. Are you very empathetic to your customers' problems and bring a lot of insights very quickly into the organization? Are you very persuasive about the ideas? These are some of the things where there will be a big surge in the skill sets, where the demand will be a lot higher. The other thing is, as we push this diversity agenda, all the organizations are going to be multi-generational, and then a lot of diversity in the organizations. That's bound to happen. Now, when that happens, are people ready to work with those kind of diversity? What kind of inclusive behaviors they demonstrate in the organization and be successful to make this diversity work? I think that is another big skill that is going to drive the future. The third most important thing is, things are becoming very cross-dimensional or multifunctional, multidimensional. You can't anymore say that, I'm a mechanical engineer, so I don't know anything about the software. Or I'm a mechanical engineer, so now you may say that I don't need to know about a biology. If you think about things like control systems or some of the fields that are out there, there is a lot of merger that is going to happen, and people need to learn from totally different disciplines and start connecting the dots to make value for the corporation. So to me, those are the skill sets which are going to drive the future, not just traditional engineering, mechanical and electrical, those kind of silos.
Right.
Yeah, and just to add, I think that's absolutely right. And I would just add, I think the connectivity to the customer and the business is more important than ever before, because the businesses are moving fast, the technologies are moving fast, and understanding how your customer makes money back to the engineering level is becoming more and more critical, I think.
Mm-hmm. And that's great segue into our next question, Rebecca. So there was a publication, Global Human Capital Trends, by Burse and Deloitte, and their research has shown that 78% of respondents now believe that diversity and inclusion is a competitive advantage. Yet despite this increased level of interest, only 6% of companies tie compensation to those diversity outcomes. So why would there not be more movement in trying to tie those two together if we're talking about it being so important?
Yeah, that's, you always want to pay for performance, I guess. But personally, I think if we tie pay to diversity outcomes, we might see some trends that we don't want to see, which is hiring women for roles that they can't be successful at. And the worst thing we could do to drive diversity is to put women in roles they can't be successful at, because then others may say, see, I told you so, so that's why they shouldn't be in these roles. And in fact, in the US, there's been several women CEOs who've been ousted recently by activist investors. I mean, I won't say that the women have necessarily been ousted, but their companies have been targeted. And so there's a lot of discussion around why were the activist investors particularly targeting those companies, and did it have something to do with their leadership? That being said, I think it comes back to the metrics. I think we have to put the metrics in place, as I said earlier, and make sure that you're really interrogating those metrics on a very, very regular basis. But I think just tying pay to a metric on diversity isn't good. But that being said, it's very clear companies that have diverse boards, that have diverse leadership teams, that have female CEOs can do great. And there's plenty of them out there, and we need to keep promoting it and driving it.
Just to add to that, I think Rebecca made a great point in terms of it's very easy to measure diversity and also do the wrong things by just pushing that metric alone. It's about the inclusion that makes the diversity work, right? I mean, we all talk about, and putting a metric around inclusion and how your inclusive behaviors are driving your performance, your innovation, your globalization, all the good things that businesses care about. That putting a metric around it and separating it out just for a diversity is a complex task. And probably, that's where we need to become better at. and that's not easy.
Right.
That's why, the numbers that you see.
That's why it's hard, yeah. So one of the things that we are finding in the US that's an issue is retention of women in engineering. And SWE has started the STEM reentry program, which I'm hoping folks have heard of, that allows women to return to their careers after a break. And there's also going to be a session on Friday that hopefully you can attend. But we know that India does face some similar challenges with those attrition numbers that are high, including the engineering discipline. So SP, can you tell us, or do you have any programs or strategies to address that, how to bring back women after they've taken a career break?
See, on the topic that you talked about, we do have a program called Relaunch, where women who take a break because of life stage events, and they are not in the workforce for at least for 6 months, they are off the work and they're waiting to get back to work. It can be 2 years and they don't know where to approach. We launched this relaunch program and it has been extremely successful. And recently I had a roundtable with the people who joined the organization through this program. The amount of, they are very successful. We have been running this program for 2 years now. We have more than about 35, 40 women engineers who are doing the engineering jobs. It's not any other job. And they are very successful, they are happy. And typically what happens is initially when they want to get into the program, they don't have the right confidence. It's only giving the platform. It is not that you're picking just because you want a woman engineer to meet the diversity number you're picking. But once you identify the right skill sets and put them in the right jobs, right roles, the confidence is back. And right now, we cannot distinguish in the organization who is a relaunch candidate, who is not a relaunch candidate. Whenever we call them for a roundtable, actually the question they ask is, why are we called? And, oh, are we the relaunch candidates? That's why we were called. That's the goodness that happens from these initiatives.
Oh,
it's
great.
a great one.
Maybe just to add a little bit more to retention.
Yep.
So in Honeywell, we have what we call stay interviews. So oftentimes companies, get somebody that resigns and they go interview why they're leaving. Well, we launched a program to actually talk to people before they leave and ask them why they stay. So we call them stay interviews. And it really is enlightening as to why people stay. And one of the biggest reasons, as you can imagine, is it's challenging work assignments. And so we had a Honeywell women's session just before this event, and 30 women in the room all talked about how passionate they were about their jobs, and some that had been here 10, 15 years said that they had stayed because every 3 or 4 years they're given a new challenging assignment. And I think that's really something that is important as to why they stay. The other thing that we learned in our stay interviews is it's the manager. And they stay because they really trust their manager. They know their manager's going to promote them. They know their manager's going to, support that they're going to get challenging roles or get career training or career development. So those kinds of things. It's really never, I won't say never, but it's rarely about money when we do the stay interviews. It's about challenging work and manager.
Very true.
Again, I add to that 2 things that make a big difference. One is the quality of the leadership. And actually, we are very fortunate in Eaton to have a leadership which has got that continuity, and that becomes a secret sauce. And then the leadership, because of the known networks within the organization, they'll be able to push challenging work assignments, rotate people, because they themselves have rotated. They do the same thing at the next levels. All those things are extremely important. The second, one of the best practices we have in the organization is we do have things called councils, employee councils. We encourage our employees to talk about, some of the problems like it can be knowledge council, how the knowledge gets disseminated as the organization becomes bigger. Instead of management solving those problems and say that, this is where, why don't you go look for it, the employees themselves form a council, and with the council, they put together some approach of how you disseminate the knowledge. Similarly, it can be on communities, councils around communities, or solving simple issues like food, transportation kind of things, or I&D council. So these are the councils where you are empowering your employees to take decisions. Everything need not come to the management for an answer or a solution, but be part of the solution by yourself. and that gives a lot of engagement for employees, and they feel part of the organization.
Yeah, that's great. And I'll just add personally, I had an employee tell me the other day that the discussion that we had about her career was the first time she'd ever had one in depth with a manager. So your point about the managers making a difference, and many of you in the room who are managers, it really does make a difference to the individual employees having that career discussion about what they want to do, if they're being challenged, you know, if they're willing to stay. So let's see, are there any questions in the audience? No? Don't be embarrassed. No? I'll say we'll keep going otherwise.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello. Good evening, all. So my question is, when we are launching something new, right, we have to unlearn some old things. So as an organization, which are those things that maybe you or your organization must have unlearned? Could you please talk about that? So when we learn something new, at times we have to unlearn also. So any comments on that front?
How to unlearn something?
We're learning something.
Unlearn something.
Let me
Yeah,
take a
try.
shot at it. You know,
Yeah, think about it.
first time when you become a manager, right? If you're a project leader or a researcher, you do everything by yourself, and you want to get the best job for yourself and things like that. When you become a manager, the first task that you need to do is you need to give the best work to your best employee rather than trying to keep it to yourself. If you don't unlearn that simple thing, you won't be successful as a manager. The same level of transition happens when you become a senior manager. Okay, don't bypass your frontline manager and go directly to the employee and make sure that they are kept in the loop. So some of these kind of things are where as you make those transitions, you need to unlearn. Same thing applies in technology, same thing applies in your day-to-day, I&D initiatives or everywhere.
Yeah, my question is more on, the diversity journey. So when we talk about evolution or S-curve, right, exponential growth. So long back, diversity was not even heard of, right? And these days we talk about diversity, we talk about equality, and even performance and quality hand in hand. So from organizational point of view, that was my question. So how do we transform ourselves from, let's say, level 0 to some level 80, 90, or 100 for that matter, going ahead?
I think obviously, we all have our own biases. Similarly, organization, because it consists of many people, everybody has their own biases. Now the question is, unless you have the forums like this, where you bring out those biases and people talk about it, that unlearning doesn't happen. Because you think you don't need to unlearn anything because you are doing the same thing again and again, and you think that is an accepted norm. The norm gets questioned only when somebody does it differently, and then there is a higher performance or a better performance. And those get challenged when there is a diverse team. That happens, and because there are different perspectives that are coming. So is it because of the bias you are cutting down that perspective, or that is a wrong perspective? I mean, maybe that is not the right one to push forward. Getting that knowledge is a skill. I mean, it's an art. I mean, it's not, there is no rule to that, right?
Any other questions?
You on the other side. Oh. Popular table over there. Yeah, always take the first one.
Hi, my name is Ravi Mysore from United Technologies. One of the challenges that we face in our organization is to improve gender diversity at senior levels. It is always pretty good at junior levels, but at senior levels, we have a problem. So what's your advice to help improve gender diversity at senior levels?
I think the most advice you can get is to have more, role models at the C level. I think I told a story today that I came out of PhD chemical engineering school and took my first job and was at a pretty senior level dinner. I think I got asked because they're trying to to include some of the new talent. And they said, well, what do you want to do when you grow up? Meaning, what do I want to do in the future of my career? And I said, I want to be the vice president of this division. And the room broke out in a big chuckle, and it was a bunch of, senior men. And they said, well, why would you want to do that? And I said, well, because this lady is the vice president of this division, and I know I can be like her. And that was when I was, 24 years old or something. So, you need to see that it's possible and it can happen. And I think that we still don't see enough of that right now. And I think the other thing is men and boards have to be willing to take risk on women. And sometimes that's tough, but there's going to have to be some risk taken to get the outcome we want. We all know it in an investing community, right? The bigger the risk, the bigger the reward. So we're going to probably have to take some big risks to get big rewards.
We do face similar challenges. It's not like we have answers, and we do have exactly the same problems. And Rebecca already talked about it. It's more about, especially if you are in the engineering technology domain, what happens is, if you have a mechanical engineering role, you traditionally want to look for a mechanical engineer. Now, maybe a physics graduate can work because the supply pool is less. 20 years or 30 years back, there were not so many engineers who went to schools and graduated to the higher degrees, and so the pool itself is less. So that's one of the inherent challenges that we do face. Now, how do we increase that pool and take chances on some of those skills which are closer, but people can get a lot more faster, especially if you're looking for leadership skills and all that. You don't need to probably get into some very specifics. And maybe that is one best practice that I can share. Other than that, the challenge exists.
Hello, my name is Anu Gilhotra from John Deere. We touched upon, it's not only the diversity metric which works, but it's the inclusion which makes it successful. So I would like to know maybe some examples or some approaches which may help us, help making your organizations more inclusive, or any other thought which you want to share around that.
One of the things we do is, constant communication. We do have a program called Valuing Individual Differences. This particular training program is all about, talking about these biases that people really exhibit, especially when you are doing the hiring or when you are doing the promotions. What kind of biases typically we come across, and we bring all the senior managers into a room, and it's a mandatory for a certain level above the organization. They all need to come and participate in this training and share their views. And based on that, we get what are the prevalent biases that exist in our particular organization, and then keep on, putting awareness programs around it, or eliminate those biases, because it needs to start at the top level and then start percolating it down. So that's one thing that we do.
Well, in UOP we have a Women's Interest Network, and it was started obviously to give women a forum to have communications about things that were important to them. But their programs actually became very popular to the point that we had a lot of men starting to attend and wanting to join. So actually our Women's Interest Network is about 50% men and women. So it's very inclusive in what we do there. And I think by not saying the men can't join, we set a very strong message that we want inclusiveness, and we want everyone to benefit from the programs that they hold. Now, we do have some programs that are women only, but generally the programs are open to anyone that wants to attend.
And I would be remiss if I didn't remind everyone that men are welcome to be SWE members as well.
Hi, this is Vamsi from IBM. I probably just want to add a comment to maybe some practical examples that we are trying to practice to promote diversity. One is we have to break the bias about somebody cannot do something, which is the first bias that we need to break. The second thing is there are good ideas that come out of diversity, and a lot of the women how do we project those to the rest of the community and rest of the team members, and that it is a brilliant idea and we should probably implement it. And when you implement it, it gives them the fillip and the benefit that, hey, they can do some things better than what you can, and you probably have not thought about it. So like this forum that we have here as SWE, where you're projecting the power of women engineers, within the organization, if a manager can project their employees' strength among the rest of the community, they feel empowered and they come out more often, more openly out to others and say, hey, you know what? I think my ideas are not just being subdued because they think I'm a woman and I should not talk about anything, right? But it's actually being taken up and being pushed up or being implemented for the rest of the organization. So that gives them the confidence. And also for managers, it's an unlearning, like the other lady said. They have to unlearn the fact that they should be open to take up ideas from anywhere if they're good and try to put them to use.
Thank you. I think we have time for one more from the audience.
One last question.
Hi, I'm Snehal from Eaton. I have one question for Rebecca specifically. So your journey from where you started to where you are right now, it would definitely not be a cakewalk for sure. So what are the top 3 things that you would possibly talk about more with respect to a few things that you did differently by which you are where you are right now, and a few things which you would even want to leave back with some of the colleagues back or with the organizations out here, that's how my teams or my colleagues or my peers, my subordinates partnered with me, and because of which I have been where I am. So what are those few things that have helped you reach where you are?
Okay, so I would say that I shared before, I didn't really have an exact map of how I was going to get here. I don't think anybody really does in their career. But the things that I think helped me get where I am today was, I wasn't afraid to take that sort of bold, challenging roles that were brand new and sort of white sheet of paper that you get to create your own. I was also not afraid to stand up for myself when I felt like I was being passed over for jobs, to the point that in one example, I resigned because I was told I was, too important to one organization to ever be let go out of that organization, right? And number 3, I think it's you've got to really be confident in yourself. And I think, in talking with the organization of women that I'm associated with at Honeywell, many women struggle with confidence at times, and I have personally as well. And to have someone that they can talk to about that and be open and figure out how to get over any kind of confidence issues and build that and grow on is really important, because the business world and even the technical world has ups and downs. Projects won't go right. Some projects will go fabulously. Some days the market is up, some days the market is down. And you cannot let the nuances of the day-to-day impact where you're going to go. And so it's setting that vision and seeing step by step, path by path, how you're going to get there. And the path may not always be as direct as you think, but having the, really the tenacity to stay on course and not let those day-to-day, issues really sideline you, I think is really critical to that. You ask about, I guess my organization and the team. I'm a leader that really wouldn't ask my team to do anything I wouldn't do. And I think that has really helped me gain a followership that has been powerful in my career, because it's really enabled my confidence. When your team really wants to go with you and be behind you and deliver with you, it's so much different than when you're telling them what to do. And we sit down, we lay out a strategy, and I'm not afraid to make the coffee, sweep the floor, take the notes, or cut the big deal. And I think that kind of inclusiveness that we have has really propelled, myself to be where I am today, but also my team to truly be propelled and know what they can do too.
So we have time for some final thoughts, maybe about the future trends you see for the profession or for your organization.
I think one of the most important thing is, especially countries like India, where 50% of the population are women. We always talk about this demographic dividend, and India is going to have a lot of young population, most young population anywhere in the world, all those kind of things. If you really want to reap the benefits of the demographic dividend, if the women don't come into the workforce, you already lost like 50% of the dividend, right? That's the number one. Second thing, it's not just about, whether somebody is coming from a rural area into an urban setting and trying to make a career in a different country. He will also face those glass ceilings and barriers and all that. So it's not different for women. I mean, there are different glass ceilings, different barriers that you need to go through. And because you are the pioneers, because those glass ceilings are not broken, you definitely need to do a lot more. And you need to break those barriers and be the role models for the next generations. What the platforms like this, the SWE or men being the partners, and if we are not aware of the issues, and if we are not providing, facilitating, it's not about helping you, but it's providing, facilitating the platforms so that you break the glass ceilings rather than somebody is breaking the glass ceiling and you going up. I mean, that's not how probably it's going to happen. You need to do it. And these are the great platforms, and thank you for inviting us. And it's wonderful to see so many people, and especially in India where we need that demographic dividend. And as a technology organization, we are looking for hiring a lot many people. So thank you very much for everything that you do.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'll just close by saying, every corporation probably has some level of virtues or behaviors that they use to guide their organization. And Honeywell has 8 behaviors, but 2 are really important, I think, as we develop our organizations and particularly develop women. One is inspire greatness. So what's the meaning behind that is, whatever you do, try to inspire greatness in those that you work with, the customers that you serve, the people that are your peers and your colleagues. So how do you inspire greatness? And the second is become your best. And that is obviously keep investing in yourself, growing your talent, trying new things. I think if we can inspire greatness in our diverse population and help them become their best, they're going to go very, very far.
Excellent. Thank you. So I think if you all agree with me that this has been a great discussion, albeit brief, but we have 2 more days to have plenty more of them. So thank our panelists and thank you all for being here tonight.
Before you leave the stage, Jonna, I would request you to please present our